Have you ever found yourself in a situation, either socially or in business, where you were working with someone or dealing with someone from a different culture and you found yourself not knowing the proper protocol to use? Perhaps you're thinking, no, not really. My job is more local than international, and my friends tend to be my same hometown friends I've always had. But if you really look around, even in our small Toastmaster club, you'll see we have members from South America, from Eastern Europe, from India, from Asia, and of course from here in the United States. It's a very international club. You're more international, you have more opportunities to deal with international people that you ever bargained for. So I found myself, due to my job, meeting a lot of international deans from business schools. And one of the incidents that I would have is not knowing when to kiss, when to shake hands, or when to bow. And although the phrase sounds kind of catchy, it's actually the title to a best-selling business book on etiquette. So for me, one of the things that was most interesting was I would meet individuals that would come to our committees, and I'm from South America, so I'm used to kissing, but how many kisses? For instance, it's common for me to shake and then do the little step and do the, but depending on where you're from, if it's Latin America, it's one kiss. If you're from Spain, France, Italy, 2 kisses. And should you meet anyone from Belgium, it's 3. Whoa. And then there's the shaking of hands. In the United States, you're kind of given credit for a strong grip. You're told a strong grip shows character. You know, quick, how do you do? Nice to see you again. Nice to meet you. And you probably never thought about it, but it only takes 3 to 5 seconds in the United States to shake hands. It's a quick grip, how are you? But if you go to Asia, the grip is a lot lighter, and the shaking of the hand takes longer, 3 times longer, usually 10 to 12 seconds. And then there's the bowing. Depending on where you go, there's different types of bowing. Chinese tend to give you a quick nod, and then the handshake. If you go to Japan, there's a deeper bow. And then in Thailand, there's the clasping of the hands. The higher the hands and the deeper the bow, the more seniority that you're being accorded. And if you think about it, about a year ago, President Obama found himself kind of the fodder for late night comics when he went to Japan and greeted the Emperor of Japan with a very deep bow. And if you see him in the pictures, you found very deeply to the Japanese Emperor and shaking hands at the same time. You don't do both at the same time. So in the United States, they criticize him a little bit for actually bowing to a different dignitary. In Japan, they were very happy that he bowed so deeply, we showed a lot of respect. And in some of the other Asian countries, they thought, well, he bowed a little too deeply to the Japanese emperor. The interesting part is President Obama spent many of his childhood years in Indonesia, and the deep bow with the handshake was proper in Indonesia. And then there's also gestures. The Italians are known for their hand gestures, but they never point at you. Pointing is improper. But in Asia, hand gestures are distracting. They tend not to speak with their hands. So when you do, and if you're in a business setting, you tend to distract from the message you're trying to communicate. So if you do that, and a lot of Americans have also adopted the hand gestures, you should try to minimize them when you're dealing with Asians. Then of course, there's proper distance. The other day, last week, one of my coworkers returned from Lima, Peru, a business trip. The minute she saw me, because I was born in Lima, Peru, she said, "What is it with you people?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? How come you all stand so close?" Well, Latin Americans do have a tendency to have less personal space when they talk to you. So I asked her, "Did you do the thing most Americans do, which is take a step back?" She said, "Yes." I go, "Did they take a step into you?" She said, "Yes." Well, Americans have that unwritten rule of arm length distance, which is usually 2 steps. But if you go to Northern Europe, for instance, to Denmark, to the Scandinavian countries, they don't do 1 arm length, they do 2 arm lengths. So that's 4 steps behind. So like more personal space. So if you find yourself in a business meeting, in an office, you may notice that the furniture is spaced quite a bit apart. Americans have a tendency to sit down and scoot the chair up. You should try to avoid that. The furniture is apart for a reason. They like their distance. So another thing is when you're dealing with other people is when do you actually get to talking business? For instance, if you go to business lunch in Spain, you probably won't get to the business part of it until the coffee comes. In the United States, you'll probably exchange pleasantries and then you get to the business. And probably at the end you'll start exchanging business pleasantries again. In Northern Europe, it's down to business right away. Which brings me to an interesting note. A few years ago when I had a different job, my boss, who was from Northern Europe, just came back from maternity leave, 3 months away. She knocks on my door, she goes, "Can we talk?" And I'm like, sure. So we start talking and she starts asking questions. She's been away for 3 months. Well, that small talk turned to 45 minutes. And when she walked out, I had like a whole list of things to do. And I said what I thought was an act of God. She said, "By the way, how have you been?" Turned out, she didn't know it. I gave her a quick, "I've been fine." I'd actually had surgery during that time. It came up, a different type of surgery, all out of a sudden. And I felt so offended as someone who's more Latin that she didn't start off with "How have you been?" Because business could always be talked about. So when she saw me a little bit later in the day, she found out about the surgery. She said, "By the way," quite annoyed, "when I asked you how you were, you could have told me about the surgery." Of course I said, "Well, I just didn't want to bring up something unpleasant. You just come back from maternity leave." But I remember how offended I was. So if you're thinking, well, President Obama got it wrong, I got it wrong when I was offended by her, if you take a little time to learn about different cultures, you'll see that we all have different cultures, and we may not always get it right, but at least you have fun learning about new cultures. Madam Toastmaster.